Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we are looking at something really cool. This is the Piratech Kraken. I do want to pop this open just to give you an idea of what these come with. So we've got a little certificate of authenticity, sort of information card there. There's a nice little slip there. It's not leather, by the way. It kind of looks like leather, so I don't want to leave that impression. It's just a synthetic material, microfiber cloth. And so that's what's coming in the bag, as well as some extra or that's what's coming in the box, I should say, as well as some extra hardware. I'll get this boring stuff out of the way and let's take a look at this knife. I have to say it is really impressive. So here you go, guys. This is the Piratech Kraken. It is a gorgeous knife. I think I want to take a second here and just look at the knife because I have to say the design on this is very good. Yes, I know it's a little derivative. As soon as I mentioned this knife, I had a couple of people talk to me about, well, it's just like a 940, it's just like a Sabenza, and it certainly has those vibes. I'm not denying that for a second, but it's also slightly different, right? Unless if you want a 940 in titanium, or if you want a Sabenza with an axis lock, this is a pretty good option. And I do think people are going to be drawn to both of those things. Now, sorry, just a quick sip of coffee there. Now, I do want to point out this is made in China, made by the same people, or made by some people who went away from Kaiser and went off to do their own thing. And I will say that um, the axis lock on this feels rather Sabenza-like, if you will. I wanted to kind of throw that out there. There is, of course, a big trick to this, but before we get to that, while we're still looking sort of the top-down view here, I just want to make a point. I just want to run through the size with you. So this is 7 5/8 overall. Okay, 3 3/16 on the blade length. 3 9/16 for grip area. Weighs in at 4.2 ounces. Now, 4.2 ounces is probably notable. Most knives are not going to be quite that heavy. And of course, if we close this guy, it's going to come in at 4 7/16. 4 7/16. So pretty small-ish knife there. For some of you, that's going to be great. For me, it's just a little bit on the small side. But I have to say, guys, sorry, there we go. Very enjoyable action. I mean, one of the most fidget-friendly knives that I have handled recently. If you're one of those guys who likes to fidget with your knife, this is going to be very appealing to you. Now, I do want to run through the specs and the features and kind of talk about each thing briefly. I will just point out this knife is borrowed, so this is not mine. Um, so I haven't done a ton of cutting with it. Let's flip this guy over while I'm talking here and let you guys see the um, non-show side, or the clip side. The clip, by the way, is movable. We'll talk about that when we get to the handle, which also the handle has a pretty cool trick. So we're going to talk about that as well. Let's start though with up front here. We have this S90V blade with a very aggressive stonewash finish. Looks really good. I feel like putting a little bit of effort into that stonewash is well worth it. The blade stock is not super thick. Here is you can see the magnetism there. Here is a para 2 to give you an idea. Okay, so we're definitely dealing with under 1/8 of an inch on that stock. We've got a flat grind, reverse tanto, and we also have another feature that I really like to see, and that is jimping running out a little bit further, especially on a smaller knife. If you're doing this kind of thing, or if you're choked up and you want to get your thumb out here, look how I've still got jimping for my finger. That is really welcome. And I like to see that, and I'd like to see it a lot more than we do. Nice and thin blade stock here. This is pretty slicey. It's not going to be, what you might call a hard use, or necessarily super tactical type of blade, but as an EDC knife, I think this is gonna be right up a lot of people's alley. I do wanna do there's a test I often do with Axis lock style knives that this one does really, really well with. So let me just show you. I'm not gonna touch the Axis lock with my other finger, just with the one thumb, and you see that it is quite accessible and workable. That to me is a pretty important deal. Now, in addition to that, so the action is very good. This is a bearing pivot. Check out yeah, that is so satisfying. Really, really great action on this knife. I want to give you a quick look. One of the things I want to point out about this is the sound is very, very different. So normally, um, I don't know. I really don't know how to describe the sound of this knife is just different, guys. And I'm not really going to be able to. Let me hold it up to my mic and see if you can hear anything. Probably not, but you're gonna have to take my word for the fact that, the sound is really, really unique and quite enjoyable when you deploy this knife, and part of that is because of the way that it's built, and here's the cool thing, if you've been watching already, you already know that there are no visible screws, not only on the show side, but even on the clip side here, there are no screws in the clip, there are no screws, right? So what's holding this whole thing together? The only thing you can really see is the removable little tab here. So the way this knife works, I'm gonna close it first so I don't cut myself. The trick that this knife is hiding is that the show scale is removable, and you can see the little magnets in there which hold this on quite tightly, and then there's your Omega spring. You can also notice, by the way, that there's no extra holes here like we're used to seeing from Kaiser. You can also see that notice how the screws are proud of these scales and even the pivot screw. The way that works is this when it drops on, all of those screws drop into the corresponding holes in the scale and keep the handle very securely in place. The other cool thing I want to show you before I put this back together is this tab just lifts out. There we go. So this just lifts out and it's being there we go. It's being held in there by the scale when you have the scale back on. So let me just pop this back on. You can see it pops on pretty easily. One of the things I found is I do a quick check. I'm going to do this off camera. There we go. Now I'll do it on camera. Sorry, but I do a quick check to make sure that I've got the scale popped on properly all the way around, which I definitely do. So really, really cool feature here. And is it a bit of a novelty? Well, yeah, it's a bit of a novelty for sure, but is it a pretty cool novelty? 110%. Yeah, it also makes maintenance on this a little bit easier if you're gonna clean things out, if you wanna lubricate things, you can get at that with a little more ease, okay? And of course, I can't say this for sure, there's nothing on the website right now, but it only makes sense that there would be various scale options available, which would allow you to swap this out for different colors or maybe even different materials. It'd be pretty cool to see this with a G10 scale, with a micarta scale, and then if you go over to, by the way, these are available. If you go to Piratech's website, they are available there. But I strongly suspect that what we'll eventually see there is this knife and then a micarta version and a G10 version, or this knife with micarta scales, G10 scales that you can just purchase on the website and then swap your scales out pretty easily by doing that. The other side, by the way, there is a screw holding the clip on here. And so if you want to take this scale off, you'd have to pop one screw up, but it's still dead simple, which to me is a really, really welcome feature. Okay. Ergonomics on this are quite good. In fact, it definitely does remind me. So I just want to show you. So I get a full 4-finger grip there, which is definitely something I look for. In smaller knives, I'm always worried about that, but this does a really, really nice job. All right. In a hammer grip, same thing. It's still pretty comfortable. It's not the most hand filling, but it is a little bit thicker then definitely much thicker and much more hand filling than an actual 940, which that's one of the things. Like I like the 940, but the handle was always just felt like I had to wrap my fingers around it twice to get really a handful out of it. And so I have to say, I kind of feel like the extra handle thickness is a bit of an upgrade. The titanium finish is great, sort of a blasted finish, very comfortable, chamfered all the way around the edges. That is, again, a very, very nice feature that makes it, again, feel really, really good in hand. Um, the other point that I haven't brought up yet is value. I mentioned that these are available. They did go up. The initial run, I think, was 280, and these are now 300. They do have a distributor in the US, and if you just go and order this knife from the US, it sounds like, from what I can read on the website, it'll be coming from their US distributor, which is great. Certain parts, and if you're ordering a bunch of other stuff, it may be coming from China by the sounds of it. And I think what they'll do is it'll still all come in one package. So you'll end up waiting a little bit longer. But again, I just the way the website is set up with a couple of different options you can order, I really do suspect quite strongly that we'll eventually be getting um, various options. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about some possible, first of all, here is my Inkosi. You can definitely see there's some similarity between these knives. Um, they're not the same, I'm not suggesting that at all. There's significant differences as well, and I would still, if I had was really pressed on it, I would definitely keep an Inkosi over this. But you can definitely see how this could scratch that itch. Okay, they're not super super comparable, so I don't want to belabor that point too much. I didn't mention I talked about the blade shape and the finish and stuff. It is S90V, which is a huge win. So while we're talking about S90V Warncliffe blades, what about the Tuya, the Freeman design, Tuya built, Voodoo? A little bit different. This knife is a little bit more appealing to me, but still, I wanted to throw it in there as a possible alternative, just because, or as a competitive option, because they're priced similarly. They've got some similar features and functions. So I thought that was a worthwhile knife to drop in there. I've also got the Quiet Carry Drift LC. Okay. Again, these scratch a lot of the same itches. They're premium, they're different, they're interesting, they have some special features that sort of scratch that collector itch in all of us. And even the price point is actually fairly similar on these. So that might be something to look at. The drift is going to be a little more hand filling, and be a little more, although nothing on here is easily corrodable. But the drift's claim to fame is that nothing on here is going to rust on you or anything like that. Let's see here. Cold Steel Code 4 makes a good comparison, just because, one, it's going to be a little bit cheaper, but it has that similar classy, simple, clean look to it. Riot Torrent is going to be more in my wheelhouse in terms of size. And I will throw in another knife that, if you like this overall idea, or if you like the 940 but wish it were bigger and a little more robust, the Microtech MSI makes a great option. It's going to be a little bit cheaper, of course, but you could make these a little more similar by doing one of the doing the aftermarket scales for the MSI, and there are a bunch available right now. The only thing I haven't seen, which I have to say I'm kind of on the lookout for, because I do want to upgrade my MSI, uh, I would love to see scales like this, sort of plain titanium scales. Original Goat has some scales, but they're mostly textured and are a little more flashy than that. Oh, one more knife. I guess I should throw a pair two in here. I already compared it once, but just to give you an idea of size, and probably everyone watching this has a pair two, or at least has handled one. So that should, again, give you a good comparison. All right, guys. So what do I think of the Piratech Kraken? I think it's a really, really great knife. Fidgety, enjoyable action. There is a lot to love here. it is a little on the small side for my preferences, but that's really just a preference, and that's very subjective on my part. I think probably 99% of the people who are watching this would really, really enjoy this knife. And the best part is, which, this isn't always the case, but if you're watching this and you are interested, you can still get these. Now, I know there are problems shipping to Canada, but yeah, ship it to a US address, or touch base with them and see if they'll disassemble it for you, whatever the case may be. Um, uh, I will put down in the comments. I've sent some emails back and forth with them, so I will follow up and see if they'd be willing to take these apart. And if they are, I'll mention it down in the comments below. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We will talk to you soon.